I like the dog. It's friendly.
Mother, father, what's afoot? Only Possum black as soot. Mother, father, where to tread? Far from Possum and his head.
Hello and welcome back to my channel Box Office Poison. My name is Moxie McMurder and I loved Possum when it came out back in 2018, but I wasn't making videos on YouTube at that point, so it's only now that I'm getting around to talking about it. So here we are. Just a quick trigger warning, this video will be taking a look at the themes of Possum, which includes childhood sexual abuse, so if that's something you'd rather not hear about, you can go check out some of my other videos. And with that in mind, let's get into it. Possum is written and directed by Matthew Holness, who is better known in the UK as the creator and star of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, a horror comedy series. But there are no laughs here in Possum. Possum started life as a short story that Holness wrote for a horror anthology called The New Uncanny Tales of Unease. The stories are all based around Sigmund Freud's theory of the uncanny, which was rooted in everyday experiences and the aesthetics of popular culture related to what is frightening, repulsive, and distressing. I haven't read the short story, but the film absolutely nails that brief. Possum is Holness's first feature film. He's made some short films, but you can tell that by this point, he definitely knows what he's doing and has developed a style that's all his. Possum is confident in its slow burn storytelling, and I personally think that Possum is one of the best British horrors of the past 10 years, and one of the best horrors, period. It has a wonderful 70s British folk horror feel. It's bleak, claustrophobic, intense, and so atmospheric. There's very little dialogue. We are drip-fed information and it's up to us to put it together. I love it when a writer or director has that amount of faith in both their work and the audience that it's designed for. Possum stars Sean Harris as Philip, a disgraced puppeteer who returns to his childhood home where he must confront his past. He returns with the intention of disposing of his creepy puppet, but no matter what he does, the puppet returns. At the same time, a 14-year-old boy who Philip meets on the train home has gone missing, and suspicion falls on Philip. While it's not the film's biggest theme, it is making a comment on how society judges people based on rumours and pure appearance. Philip casts a sinister shadow in his beige raincoat, but is he really a predator? The puppet that Philip carries with him, whose face resembles Philip's, has the legs of a spider. It's a deeply disturbing image and it says so much, as does the creepy nursery rhyme-style poem that haunts Philip as he wanders the desolate flatlands of his surroundings. Sean Harris has a reputation as a method actor, and this is one of his strongest performances. The physicality of the character feels so authentic. Even the way he holds his arms gives him the appearance of a puppet sometimes. Philip feels like someone who's stuck with arrested development and never quite fully mentally developed beyond a certain age, and this only gets worse as the film goes on. Alan Armstrong plays the grimy, sinister Uncle Maurice, who from the get-go is the far more menacing figure, much more so than the creepy puppet Philip carries around with him. Maurice taught Philip how to make puppets, and he has his own Punch and Judy-inspired looking puppet that Philip seems really scared of. His filthy fingers and yellow-toothed sneer are pretty gross to start with, and as the film goes on, we're given hints that there's more than one secret hiding in this house. If you haven't seen the film, I really recommend checking it out. It's an art house take on grief, trauma, and guilt. It's not an easy watch, but it's honestly the sort of film that stays with you, and if you're a fan of horror, and British horror in particular, because there is something very British about the film beyond its location, you should really watch it. And then come back and tell me what you thought of it. Warning, here be spoilers. Philip is a tragic figure. It's hard not to feel sympathy for him. He's been deeply damaged. His innocence has been shattered, or more appropriately, burned away. When we first meet Philip, we see him in a brightly lit room, clean sheets and walls, a big open window, and he's closing the zip on the bag that he will carry with him throughout the film. It could be seen as a little on the nose to have a character literally carrying their emotional baggage around with them, but when it's revealed that someone was attacking children when Philip was young and used a very similar style bag to cover their heads, it's another piece of the puzzle that all comes together to form a pretty grim picture of childhood abuse. We gradually learn that Philip's parents died in a fire at the house, and as Philip plays with his lighter, you can't help but wonder if he was responsible for the fire, and that's why he can't bear to go into the room they died in. But perhaps that's reading too much into things. He's already carrying enough of an emotional burden. It could simply be grief. When Philip returns to his childhood home, the house looks decrepit, practically abandoned, but there are still signifiers of his childhood, the school bag and skipping rope hanging by the front door, and you can see Philip's childhood wallpaper peeking through the dirty wallpaper in his room. His childhood is all around him, and this just makes things worse. As the film progresses, Philip regresses to a more childlike state. His movements change, his language changes, and it's small things like this that are a testament to the superior acting of Sean Harris. He skillfully portrays the loneliness and vulnerability of Philip, as he literally carries around his baggage, and his intensity, as always, is masterful and keeps you on edge throughout. The reveal that Uncle Maurice is behind the kidnapping of the missing boy, and as hinted at earlier in the film, was responsible for abusing boys when Philip was a boy, is pretty grim. The horrible spider legs Possum has are the parallel to Uncle Maurice's fingers, and it's so gross, so visceral, so real. It's repugnant to see. Which brings me to something that I really appreciate about Possum: the lack of graphic scenes of abuse. It would be so easy to fill this film with flashbacks and scenes of Philip's torture as a child, but it doesn't need to. Everything you need to know is in the visuals and in Sean Harris's performance. Philip kills Maurice during an attack and frees the missing boy, who runs off to freedom like a fox being released from a trap. I've seen some discussion around the idea that Maurice was a figment of Philip's imagination and wasn't ever at the house. I like this idea in theory. We don't see him interact with anyone other than Philip, but what I don't like about that theory is that it means that Philip kidnapped the boy. I think showing that despite being so traumatized by abuse, him not becoming a predator is a sign of hope for Philip. The abused becoming the abuser is a common trope in media, and while obviously it does happen, it's not really the norm. The sickly green sweets that Maurice keeps offering Philip are possibly drugged, which adds to Philip's paranoia, and I think is linked to Philip's blackouts after he tries to get rid of the puppet. He doesn't quite remember what he did, and he's terrified that he took the missing boy. There's some evidence to suggest that perhaps Philip was involved in the possible murder and or abuse of another kid when Philip was young, and this again adds to his psychological burden. Something else I really liked about the film were the subtleties of what's in the frame. At one point when Philip is stuffing Possum into a trash can, the legs look like they're fighting back. The black balloons, I guess, signifying grief and innocence lost, and the curling black smoke, and how little we actually see of the puppet. It's all so well done. I also liked the touch of the puppet suddenly having eyes at some point during the film, perhaps a sign that Philip's eyes are finally open to what happened to him. It's an incredibly dark and intense film, but it's also beautifully shot. The Norfolk landscape is the perfect expanse of flat and bleak backgrounds for this sort of story. I've seen some criticism of the pacing of the film, but for my money the pacing is spot on. It doesn't drag at all for me. I think the intensity of the performance keeps you invested. It's worth mentioning the unsettling score, the first film score by the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, who are best known for the original Doctor Who theme. They created a fantastic score that really amplifies the unnerving and disturbing atmosphere. Possum is about trauma, grief, and guilt, and it's a film that I would love if more people would see. Leave a comment below if you've seen it. I'd love to know what you thought of it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video despite the dreary subject matter. You know the drill by now. Hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you really enjoyed my videos, you can help support my channel by buying me a coffee. All caffeine hits are gratefully received. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Thank you for your time, have a great day, and stay spooky.